This presentation will discuss the Ed-Flex Schoolwide Eligibility Waiver requirement that is part of the random validation process for the 2021-2022 school year. We will go over the documentation the LEA will need in order to participate in the random validation, as well as the specific items that TEA staff will review. Before we begin, we want to point out that documenting overall compliance with a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. To ensure overall compliance with program requirements, LEAs should refer to the program guide and/or other program-related resources that reference the multiple forms of documentation required to be maintained locally. The documentation requested for submission during the random validation process may not include all forms of documentation that are required to be maintained locally. To complete this validation, the LEA will need the 2021-2022 Random Validation Submission Packet and Handbook that are specific to the Ed-Flex Schoolwide Eligibility Waiver. These were emailed on December 1st, 2021 to those LEAs that were selected for this validation. All the random validation monitoring resources are also available on TEA's ESSA Random Validation Monitoring webpage. When the LEA first completes Schedule WV 4004 in the Consolidated Federal Grant Application to request the school-wide eligibility waiver for one of its campuses, the LEA is instructed to complete a supporting documentation form to be maintained locally and to be available upon request. For this validation, the LEA is asked to submit the supporting documentation form for the campus indicated in the notification letter. If the original form for the campus selected is no longer available, the LEA must complete and submit the supporting documentation form that is currently available on the website. Issues that may result in an improvement needed status for this item include the following. The supporting documentation form is not submitted. The supporting documentation form is not for the selected campus. The supporting documentation form is incomplete. The instructions for uploading the requested documents are listed in the Random Validation Handbook for this requirement. The LEA should have two separate files to upload: a Word file containing the cover sheet and checklist, and a PDF file containing the supporting documentation. The due date for uploading these files on ESSA reports is January 14th, 2022. Questions related to the 2021-2022 random validation process may be directed to program staff through the division telephone number at 512-463-9499 or the division email address essasupport@tea.texas.gov.